In 2008, researchers at the Yerkes National Primate Research Center gave Capuchin monkeys small granite tokens that could be exchanged for food. The monkeys learned the system quickly. Then the researchers did something simple. They changed the prices. When the price of apples dropped, the monkeys bought more apples. When the price of grapes dropped, they shifted to grapes. They tracked the changes. They adjusted. Every single monkey, without exception, responded to price fluctuations the way a rational consumer would. That is not what anyone expected. The question the researchers were left with was precise. If an animal with a brain the size of a lemon can respond to market signals, what exactly is the economic behavior we thought only we were capable of? The Capuchin experiments were run by economists Keith Chen and Laurie Santos. Their findings did not just show that Capuchins could trade. They showed that Capuchins made irrational choices in the same specific ways humans do. When a trader showed them a result framed as a gain, they responded differently than when the same result was framed as a loss, even though the outcome was identical. The quantity of food received was the same. The framing changed their behavior. This is called loss aversion. It is one of the foundational concepts in behavioral economics. Daniel Kahneman documented it in humans and won a Nobel Prize for it. The Capuchins had it too, without anyone teaching it to them, without any prior exposure to markets, without any cultural framework for what a trade is supposed to look like. Then researchers tested chimpanzees, not with tokens, but with direct exchanges. A chimp was given a resource and offered a trade. If the trade was fair, they accepted. If it was skewed heavily in the experimenter's favor, they refused, even if refusal meant getting nothing at all. They would rather walk away empty than accept an exchange they perceived as unjust. There is a name for this in economics. It is called the ultimatum game. When humans play it, they reject unfair offers roughly half the time, which is, strictly speaking, irrational. A small amount of money is better than no money at all. But humans value fairness enough to pay to enforce it, even at personal cost. Chimpanzees, in controlled studies, do the same thing. Now here is where the two results begin to pull against each other. Capuchins respond to prices. They track supply, demand, and relative value. They make rational market adjustments in real time. But they are also loss-averse in exactly the irrational human way, overweighting a potential loss relative to an equivalent gain. Chimpanzees punish unfair trades by refusing them, which is also not rational, but differently. Same broad category of economic cognition. Two completely different failure modes. The Capuchin fails the way a human investor fails, reacting to the framing of an outcome rather than its actual value. The chimpanzee fails the way a human negotiator fails, sacrificing material gain to signal that certain terms are not acceptable. The underlying capacity appears to be shared across both species. The specific error is not. The contradiction deepens when you move further out. Researchers studying honeybees have documented something that looks, structurally, like a functioning labor market. Scout bees evaluate food sources and return to the hive. The quality of what they found determines how long and how vigorously they dance. A better source produces a longer waggle dance, which recruits more foragers to that location. A mediocre source produces a shorter one. A poor source produces no dance at all. The colony allocates labor based on real-time quality signals. Remove the best food source and the colony redistributes within hours. Introduce a richer one and the allocation shifts toward it. This is dynamic resource allocation under changing conditions. It is structurally what markets do. But bees do not negotiate. They do not reject unfair offers. They show no evidence of loss aversion or inequity sensitivity. They process signals and respond to them with a consistency that primate economic systems never achieve. The bee colony, in this specific and narrow sense, is a better economic actor than the Capuchin. It allocates without the distortions that make primate markets systematically inefficient. No bias, no framing effects, no sense of fairness clouding an otherwise clean calculation. The same core phenomenon, resource allocation under scarcity and shifting conditions, runs through all three. The mechanism producing it is entirely different in each case. And the errors, the places where each system introduces inefficiency or breaks down, are not random. They track social structure with a consistency that is difficult to attribute to coincidence. Primates who live in complex social hierarchies with long individual memories developed loss aversion and fairness detection. In an environment where survival depends on ongoing relationships with individuals who remember every past interaction, sensitivity to relative gain and perceived injustice is not a bug. The Capuchin who accepts a bad deal trains its trading partners to keep offering bad deals. The chimpanzee who punishes an unfair exchange builds a reputation that produces better exchanges across years of social life. What looks like irrationality at the level of a single transaction is rational at the level of a social career. Bees have no individual social careers. There is no reputation to build or protect. The scout who found the food source today is not an agent that the hive will evaluate or remember tomorrow. The system runs clean precisely because it does not need to carry the weight of social memory. It is efficient because it is anonymous. Ravens close this pattern in a way that is difficult to set aside. Researchers in Sweden and the United Kingdom have documented that ravens will refuse a trade if they have recently observed another raven receiving a better deal for the same item. They track relative value across social transactions. They notice the gap between what they received and what someone else received for equivalent goods. They respond to that gap by withdrawing from the exchange entirely. A raven will sit with nothing rather than accept terms it has just watched another individual beat. That sentence is about a raven. It is also an accurate description of most humans in a salary negotiation, or at a car dealership, or splitting a restaurant bill with someone who orders more and pays less. The research on raven cognition has been documented across multiple European institutions over the past 2 decades, and the consistency of the finding across different experimental designs makes it hard to dismiss as artifact. These are not domesticated animals shaped by proximity to human economic life. They are wild birds solving a problem that evolution apparently decided was worth solving in a species that last shared a common ancestor with humans hundreds of millions of years ago. Here is what this dismantles. We tend to locate economic behavior inside a category reserved for abstraction, culture, and the kind of thinking that required the invention of writing, mathematics, and institutions. The market in this framing is something humans built because we are the kind of creature capable of building it. Loss aversion is a quirk of the human mind. Fairness norms are products of human civilization. Dynamic resource allocation at scale is what happens when humans organize themselves into systems too large for any individual to comprehend. But loss aversion appears in Capuchins who have never used a token before the day researchers handed them one. Fairness detection appears in Chimpanzees who have never signed a contract or joined an institution. Dynamic labor allocation appears in insect colonies with no individual agent capable of representing the system they are part of. And inequity aversion, the refusal to accept a worse deal than the one you just watched someone else receive, appears in ravens who have no framework for any of this and no awareness that what they are doing has a name. What the evidence actually shows is not that animals understand economics. It is that economics, at its foundation, is a description of something that was already present, already running, already producing the same failure modes and the same efficiencies across species that diverged from each other at vastly different points in evolutionary time. The patterns we identified, named, modeled, and built institutions around were not invented. They were discovered. And they were discovered late. The graphs came after. The Nobel lectures came after. The trading floors and the textbooks and the behavioral finance journals all came after. The territory preceded every map we have ever drawn of it by millions of years. We did not create economic behavior. We eventually built a language precise enough to look at what capuchins and chimpanzees and bees and ravens were already doing and recognize it for what it was.